in writing my story, I just wanted people to understand that it was, I know I said something in the book about pro wrestling's all bullshit, but that bullshit was everything to me.
Pro wrestler Bret Hart, today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. They called him the Hitman. Wrestler Bret Hart was born into a wrestling family. His father was the renowned Stu Hart, who often would bring other big-name wrestling stars home with him when Bret was just a little boy. By the time he was a teenager, Bret Hart still wasn't convinced that he wanted to become a wrestler himself, but he changed his mind by his early 20s. And by the time he retired some 25 years ago, Bret Hart had become one of the best-known, most popular, and most highly regarded wrestlers in the world. Not without his controversy, of course, including an infamous incident in Montreal that has come to be known as the Montreal Screw Job. Now, in 2008, Bret Hart wrote an autobiography called My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling. I met him one day in the crowded downtown Washington, D.C. hotel lobby to talk about his book while he was on a book tour. In just a moment, our conversation.
Come back with us now as we relive a little piece of our cultural history on Now I've Heard Everything. This interview is from Bill Thompson's 30-year archive. Enjoy.
So here now, from 2008, Bret Hart. Were you destined to become a wrestler?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think when I think about it, I don't know that I had much choice. Like, I really think that I was preordained to become a king of wrestling, or in the world of wrestling. I grew up in it from a very small age, and I suppose in a lot of ways I always thought I'd end up as a wrestler, even when I was young. I think what I really thought it wouldn't happen is when I was a teenager, and by the time I was like 13 to about 18, I think it was the last thing in the world I thought I'd ever do. I didn't want to become a wrestler at all, but by the time you're 20 and you start to look at the options that you have, wrestling, at least the way I always remembered is thought it would be a good way to see the world, stay in good shape, and make a little bit of money. I never thought I'd make a lot of money in wrestling, and I thought I'd meet girls. I thought that's like, okay, perfect. I'll do it for 5 years. When I'm about 25, I'll pack it in and get a real life and get a real job. But as it turned out, wrestling just kept throwing lefts and rights at me, and I just followed the path.
The wrestling world that you entered, that was your father's world, was it not?
Yeah, pretty much. I think wrestling evolved quite a bit. My father was it evolved from like the carnival days through the 30s and the 40s, and I think anyone that was a pro wrestler through the 40s and the 50s, they were all legitimate wrestlers. And they could they're all what the term is shooters and stuff like that. They had the cauliflower ears, and they could break your wrist or your ankle just about at will, that kind of thing. But it modified over, and then I think after the Gorgeous George era, there was a lot more showmanship in it. And mind you, I think it was basically a worked business from probably from about the 20s on. And my dad was a really respected shooter, and he loved the shooters and the tough guys of wrestling, kind of. But I grew up with a different. I was more of I was your classic wrestler, pro wrestler, as far as the smoothness of not hurting anybody. I was kind of opposite of my dad, a different kind of artist. Wrestling is a lot more like figure skating, I think, sometimes, than it is anything else, because it's really takes two people to tell a really good story. And if they get two really good wrestlers that understand what they're doing and understand how to sort of script a story while using their bodies, because there's no real lines. I never saw a script in wrestling. I think they have them now, but nobody ever tells you what to do. The only thing that was ever scripted in wrestling were the last 3 seconds. And so I think I grew up sort of appreciating the artists of wrestling, and when I got into it, it wasn't about hurting somebody. It was just the opposite, about how you could make it look as real as possible without hurting somebody, and I think I was one of the best at that.
Do remember when I was a kid, you probably remember too, watching Vern Gagne and guys like that. I was so worried. Oh my gosh, he's hurting him. He's breaking his neck. He's breaking his legs. And my dad would say, no. He says, they're all going to go out and have a steak dinner afterwards.
Well, a lot of times that's probably true, and a lot of times it wasn't. But in general, wrestlers, it was more of a team. It always was a bit more of a team, and the whole team sort of worked towards a whole show. The whole show would, if the show was a success, then everyone on the team would benefit from it, and that's kind of how it worked. And the real rivalries and sort of feuds in wrestling, probably going back to say Vern Gagne, the guys that he fought with probably all loved him for being a guy that drew money and paid well. And
well, this is a sport made for television, isn't it?
Yeah, wrestling. I think in the 50s when television came on the scene, it was hard to get lighting for baseball and football and things like that in the beginning, and wrestling was perfect, as was boxing, and it became a big success. I think Gorgeous George did a lot to turn wrestling into a phenomenon, and it really surged, I think, through the 50s and early 60s. It was quite popular, and then I think as television progressed and lighting got better, and of course they could film football games and baseball games and things like that better, wrestling started to sort of fade a little bit. But it always was simple. It was always David and Goliath kind of drama, and it was easy to tell a story, and it was good entertainment. What I love about wrestling from that era, in contrast to today, was that it was an era filled with where your grandfather could take your grandson to the fights, and even your daughter could go with you. Like it was a family entertainment kind of thing, and it was a good night of fun. I think a lot of people, even back then, probably thought it was a show and understood it was a show. But at the same time, I think once you got there in the building, it was easy to let all that slip off and take it as real for the night. And then when you're walking out to your car, you're probably saying what your dad said to you, like, don't worry, they're going to go out and have a steak dinner. And that's fair enough. And I think that's what what I always thought, wrestlers never got their credit for what they did do and for how they did sort of bring people together. And it was a simple, easily understood entertainment that could, like you could come from Africa and follow wrestling pretty quick, whereas you might have trouble following baseball. And I thought it was important for people back in the 50s and 60s. I know when I watched wrestling as a kid, it was I didn't know what was real and what was. I assumed it was always real, and I thought it was something good. I think.
Well, let me ask you, as the years went by, how did you maintain your integrity in the sport?
I just always worked really hard, and I was basically, when I worked for my father, I was a good guy, and my family, my dad was a good guy, and the family we were all sort of seen. I like to think of it sort of as the Cartwrights or something like that. I very much identified with the Cartwrights and the kind of the battles. Like when I watched those old westerns, it was kind of like, we'll get someone's got to save little Joe, and someone's and there's Hoss. It was kind of like that as a family, and even though it was all sort of not scripted but sort of worked out, it was something that people that maybe couldn't afford Broadway tickets or theater tickets, and it was kind of a form of entertainment that went for lower income kind of families, but it was something good and noble about wrestling in the sense that it made people happy and allowed people to let their stress out. I always thought wrestling was more of a morality play sometimes, and in doing that, I always felt that in my case that I was a real true artist in the sense that I could really make wrestling seem quite real, and the consequences and the like the titles and things like that were all very real to portray. And you're right about a lot of times you go out and have a steak dinner with the bunch of wrestlers that you just fought. And but it was when people enjoyed it the way they did, I think there was a certain satisfaction I got from knowing that I'd given them the best sort of match I could and really allowed them to let out all that aggression.
After this short break, Bret Hart addresses the question, are wrestlers actors or athletes?
AI is not just for 22-year-old coders. A lot of us older adults are drawing on our life experience to find unique and creative ways to use AI, at home or at work. Got an AI success story you'd like to share? Tap the link below to visit our YouTube channel, AI After 40, and let's keep learning together.
Now back to my 2008 conversation with Bret Hart.
Your book is very honest, very frank. How did you decide where the line was going to be that you would tell us this much but not that?
Well, I think that what I did is I wrote 1,235 pages, which I kind of told everything I could possibly think of that related to this story. I wanted to make it a story about wrestling, and as much about wrestling and for a wrestling audience, say. But I also understand that there's a lot of people out there that are sort of closet wrestling fans that probably don't even want to admit that they actually watch it now and then. And I wanted to reach out to people that always wonder what the hell wrestling even was, and that they don't watch it and they have not much regard for it, and look at wrestlers as a bunch of bums and sort of slobs and non-athletes, when in fact it takes a tremendous amount of athletic ability. And the wrestlers are great actors too, and for so many years we never got credit for either one. We never got credit for being good actors or great athletes. And in writing my story, I just wanted people to understand that it was I think I said something in the book about pro wrestling's all bullshit, but that bullshit was everything to me. And it's kind of true. It really, I took so much pride in my character, how it evolved over the years, and how hard I worked every night, and to so much of the pain is mapped out and sort of planned out, but a lot of the pain isn't, and I got hurt a lot of times, and I put a lot of the things I did to my body as far as punishment was all real, and I always thought people will never understand what it is, because wrestling is so sort of like the mafia or whatever. Like no one ever comes out behind the curtain to tell you what's really going on, and the only truth about wrestling is always fabricated by the wrestling promotions and the people that are involved with what's good for their company, kind of thing. But the truth about wrestling is very little of it's been known, and looking back on it, I wish that there was some books that wrestlers could have written, like going back through the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s.
But even if you'd had those books, that wouldn't have changed your mind about going into the business, would it?
No, but it might have made me... I think there's a lot of stories that people never got to know. And I think most wrestlers, not a lot of wrestlers were capable of writing a book or putting it together, and probably a lot of wrestlers today are capable of even reading my book. But there's a lot of people that there's so much there and so much depth with so many wrestlers that, like, I know there's a book that just came out about Gorgeous George, and I'd like to read it, but I don't know how close it is to the reality of what life was like as a wrestler, because it's all gone now. Most of these wrestlers are dead, and most of them took their stories with them. They don't talk much. And what I really wanted to do was write a book that would last, and like years and years from now, someone look back like I look back on someone like the real Bret Hart that wrote all those Western stories, something that was pretty close to the truth, and that way you get a feel for how it really was.
Now, are you okay with the fact that some of the fans will see a book like this in the store, they're starting to thumb through it, the first thing they do is turn to the index, what does it say about Shawn Michaels, and something like that?
I'm happy if they read it any way they get it, But I do I do hope that they'll take a closer look at my book, because it's not like Shawn Michaels' book or any other wrestler's book, because no other wrestler has my story, good or bad, and none of them have taken the time to write it the way I wrote it, except for Mick Foley wrote a very good book. But his career and my career are not even close to, they're so far removed from each other as far as how he started and how he ended up, and how I started and how I ended up. And I just know that I think of my book more as a life story, and I think I was really honest to the point that sometimes I think I maybe shot myself in the foot a few times in certain ways in that book. But I thought it was important for me to, if I was going to be really straight about a lot of other guys and talk about other wrestlers, and I don't think of my book as a tell-all in any sense of that word, but I do think that it was important to tell how it was for me, and how important it was, and how I saw the whole workings of the business play out.
Well, if nothing else, at least we'll finally get the straight story on what happened in Montreal, right?
Oh yeah, you get it as straight from the source, and it's a very like the whole book is a very honest account of what happened. I didn't fabricate anything in that book or make anything up, and I know there's probably some people in the industry that probably Vince McMahon's not too happy about my book, and I don't imagine Shawn Michaels will even look at it, but I do know that Shawn Michaels wrote in his book that Vince took a dive and that I never even hit him, and I know for a fact that I broke my hand on his jaw, so there's no, I definitely, there's the truth in my book that you won't get in a lot of other books.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, just I think that I hope that people will take a closer look at my book, because again, I didn't really write it for wrestling fans. I wrote it for someone that's not necessarily a fan, and I hope someone that's just kind of curious about wrestling, about really how it all really works, and what the business, how it could possibly mean anything to somebody. I think if they could take a look at my book, they'll see that there's a lot of heart in there.
It's also a father-son story, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because there's some people that have kind of taken out of my book that I was kind of hard on my dad, but I don't think I was trying to be hard on my dad at all. I was trying to, if anything, I was very proud of my father and how he raised me and raised my whole family, and how he never ever wavered in his responsibility to his kids. And I think when you're the father of 12 kids, you have to be pretty firm with them, and I think he did that, and I have nothing but the deepest and fondest love for my father, and I hope that comes out in the book, because that was one of the main parts for me.
Bret Hart is 68 now. He was inducted into the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame. Now you can get your copy of My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling by Bret Hart by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. Heardeverything.com is where you can also find my 2002 conversation with Hulk Hogan.
They said I was a problem child and I got in fights, and I was sent to a reform school where the truth was I was a big fat kid, never got in a fight, and the only kind of thing I was sent to was a Christian ranch.
And my 2011 conversation with Chris Jericho.
Wrestling as an art form is very underestimated. I think a lot of people just dismiss it as this fake thing. It's a suspension of disbelief. It's playing of a character.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us wherever you find podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, she was nearly killed in a car bomb explosion in Iraq while she was covering the war over there for CBS News. My 2008 conversation with Kimberly Dozier.
My family was very upset that I would wake up every morning, come to, feel the searing pain in my legs, look around the hospital room, realize where I was, and it would all come flooding back.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.